Right, we're in the RW Designs X-Plane Twin Otter. We're at L70 Agua Dulce in Southern California. The weather looks good, it's very windy, a little bit hazy. Primarily I want to look at the different ways of setting up the view. Now, you already know with a super wide view like this we get this rather intrusive stretching at the extremes, which I commented in my last video, I think, that you don't really notice it unless you look for it. Now that's not really true once you begin to look into it in more depth. So anyway, we're starting off with the super stretchy view. I've got the monitors set up as a single monitor using NVIDIA 2D surround. The actual field of view is about 150 or 160 degrees. I've got it set up for 120 degrees in X-Plane at the moment. And that means it appears a little bit more zoomed in than it should do. And that's really just because when you get to 150 degrees in the setup, it really starts to look super stretched. So this is a bit of a compromise. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take off, we're going to fly to Palmdale, which is kind of over there. Got that set up on the HSI. The VR1 is tuned to Palmdale, PMD, we're 15 miles away. And then we'll do a little bit of airfield hopping all the way to Mojave. So, ready to go. Going to put down one notch of flaps. Got a super strong crosswind from the left, or have we? We did have earlier. So I've dialed in some right rudder trim. Hopefully we're going to be able to survive that. Going to have to be very careful on the rudder. This is kind of a narrow runway. A lot of right rudder. A lot of right rudder. But not too much. Then we're up. You just try and stay over the runway. You'll see how intense that crosswind is. So we're pretty much over that ridge. I'm going to set us up to fly towards an airfield called General Fox, which is KWJF. Put that on the GPS, make sure we're following GPS. We'll go into nav hold. Palmdale right ahead there. Edwards Air Force Base should be over there somewhere. General Fox is 12 miles away to the north. A lot of power lines around here. Now coming back to this stretching, it's a little bit difficult to assess that stretching objectively when we've got things like this. You know, the aircraft window surround. Because it's not actually clear what shape that is if it's undistorted. You can see as it moves from the front to the side, it does seem to stretch out a bit. One thing that's helpful to watch is the throttles and the prop levers. The prop levers are wiggling a bit there. That's just because my Cytec throttle cord is very glitchy. But if you watch the throttle levers as they go onto the side screen, they just become very large and out of proportion really. We've got an elongated engine and we can see the engine air intake. I'll swivel it around a bit as well. Okay, the airfield we're heading for is just there. And one of the things about X-Plane that I quite like is the airfields don't stand out unrealistically. If you fly FSX on default scenery, you know, the airfields can be spotted like 50 miles away. In X-Plane you sometimes can't spot them until you're right on top of them, which is kind of like how it is in the real world. You know, they blend in nicely to the scenery. Again, that engine on the side monitor is just incredibly stretched. Really not realistic at all. And if you watch, if I bring out round onto the centre of the view, that's much more in the correct proportion. Can't really see the right hand engine. Let's try and look at that. There it is. Again, over there on the right, it's very long, elongated. That's much more in proportion. Okay, KMHV 15 miles. Let's go straight onto that. We've seen that distortion out on the ground as well. It is quite noticeable. Those circular features are really smeared out. Again, if I bring them into the centre, they're in the correct perspective, what you'd expect.
Mojave information Kilo 100 Zulu weather, wind chill alert, wind 330 at 3 variable 32 to 350 August 21, visibility more than 10, sky clear, temperature 11, dew point -1, altimeter 2992, arriving runway 30, departing runway 30, advise on initial contact view of Kilo.
Right, we want runway 30, which is going to be that direction, so we're going to come around to the right a bit. We'll come off autopilot. Probably start to descend. Okay, so we're running the same scenario again, but this time I've set up the view in a different way. This is using X-Plane 11's new feature of being able to set up each monitor as an independent view. I've done that. I'm not going to go through how to do this because it's fairly intuitive in the X-Plane user interface. Essentially, I've decided, because I've had the surround view set to 120 degrees, I've set each of these three monitors to 40 degrees. So we've got 40, 80, 120 degrees. We should get about the same view. But the difference is that out at the sides we shouldn't see any stretching, or we shouldn't see as much stretching. And indeed, my first impression when looking at that is that we're not seeing that same smearing out of the cockpit surrounds. The engine, if I just scoot forward a little bit, remember those engines at the sides were looking very elongated before. But let's get up in the air and we'll see how this compares in flight. So same scenario. Turn us into that wind so we can gauge. So what I'm finding is this non-stretchy display makes looking out the side windows somewhat easier and more natural, I suppose. And what I'm finding is these pillars are not getting in the way as much as they were. I guess when they're out at the sides on the stretchy display, they're much bigger than they should be, so more intrusive. And of course, the things on the ground when we're looking out to the side, they're in proportion. Those circular ground features, for example, if I move them out to I'll try and move them out onto the right on the monitor. So they're still in the same proportions out there at the extremes as when they're on the central display. We don't seem to be getting any frame hit at all from using that independent multi-view, which is very encouraging. And if that holds up, then basically we're not going to use the surround view at all. There's no reason to use it. There's every reason not to use it. It has been pointed out to me that my graphics card, which is a NVIDIA 1070 and also the 1080, they do support a new technology from NVIDIA called simultaneous multi-projection, and that allows in hardware to do precisely what I've got here, which is to show 3 different projections of the same 3D scene but with 0 performance overhead. Now I don't know if X-Plane 11 is actually using that feature or if it's just that the way it is implemented in X-Plane 11 has a marginal or 0 performance hit for other reasons. So this is the final approach. Again, we want to be looking for the differences in perspective, particularly as we get near the ground. In the absence of that stretchy view, we should see differences in the apparent speed and I guess height among the ground, especially above the ground, especially in our peripheral vision. That lighting effect doesn't look right on the cockpit. Alright, we're doing okay, doesn't feel quite as bumpy this time. Famous last words. Try and get it on the centre line. Holding it off slightly. That was almost better than last time.